the perfect segue into our, yes, I did. Yes, I did, Jailyn. The perfect segue into Miss Jailyn's segment, because I feel like in the kitchen, yes, ma'am, Miss Jailyn is the superwoman. I was telling them earlier about how we met and we used to be on this email group, and so I have to repeat it, that, you know, we would share like, you know, what are you cooking this week? You know, what are your plans or whatever? And Jailyn always had her meals planned out for the week. And I would roll my eyes sometimes like, you know, whatever. I do not even have the groceries ready to cook anything for this week. I'm going to go after work on Monday to pick up some stuff. But she would have everything all planned out. But she was, you know, a good model for that, you know, something to aim for. And I asked her to just share some tips about cooking and how you can make it simple. She's going to share some 5-ingredient meals for us. But if you go to her Facebook or her Instagram page, tell us the name, Jailyn.
Salt, pepper, brown sugar.
Salt, pepper, brown sugar. You'll be able to see some more extravagant recipes, and her kids. Yes, ma'am. Yes, you deserve all the kudos. But yeah, so Miss Jailyn Smiley is going to share with us for a few minutes.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me, because I love to share. But secondly, they are not extravagant things. My husband, I was telling Leslie earlier, I think she probably knew, she did know this, but we hadn't talked about it in a while. He's from Kentucky and was raised by his family, you know, matriarchal kind of headship, but his father was, you know, present, but the women in his family cook. And so when we were dating, my mother was still living, and I remember her saying, "You cooking again?" And I was like, "Yeah." Trying to impress, you know, kind of thing. And she was like, "Whatever you start," because she could see the seriousness of our relationship. So she was like, "If you start this now, you're gonna be doing this forever." And I was like, "Okay, you know, that's fine." But his grandmother is 93. She's adopted me, so I know, you know, what you're talking about with that, because both my parents are deceased, and she said the same thing. "I'll be your grandmother."
Yeah.
Has been just that. But she cooks big all the time, even when she says she's not going to. And I love that, because everybody comes home for Thanksgiving and she starts asking the kids in September, October, "What do y'all want?" And we already know. If she says we're going to have turkey, we're like, and what else? And she's like, no, we're just going to have turkey and pinto beans. And then you get there and it's turkey and roast and ham.
Of course.
And, you know, all the things. So I see the pleasure in her face when we're all at the table and when everybody's eating and you're just, you know, carrying on about it all, just the love in it. And I think for me, that's what it is for my family. But when Leslie and I first met and we were in this email group, that was when all of us had little kids and everybody was trying to figure out either homeschooling or having one person at home or working off of one income. And so it really boiled down to, okay, I have $20 this week and I have a husband and one child at the time. The others came quickly when they did come. Because there's a big gap of just my oldest son being the only child, and then we had 3 right back to back. But I just wanted to be able to eat, but not make it feel like, oh my gosh, we don't have any money. You know what I mean? Yeah. I didn't want us to have, and this may sound a little, I just didn't want us to have that, oh, woe is me mentality, because this week we're going to have hot dogs and, you know, pork and beans. So I tried to make things fun. And I actually remember our first lady, Lois Evans, I go to Oak Cliff Bible, talking about the days when things were lean for them. She said, but it doesn't mean it doesn't have to be nice.
Yeah.
So I try to use our nice plates, not necessarily china. I don't really think we have any china. I have some things that I purchased, but sometimes I'll pull those out. We had Easter and I pulled out the glasses and all of that, and I enjoyed us being at the table. But when it comes to the actual food, I want to be able to share with people that, because everybody doesn't cook rack of lamb and the what is that big roast, the prime rib,
brisket.
well, that's the good thing, and I'll talk about that. It's good that you said that. But I mean, some of this, when I follow a lot of people on Instagram, not as much Facebook, but a lot on Instagram because it's pictures. So food is my thing. So I'm always drawing the pictures. But some of the things I'm like, I don't have that in my pantry. I don't have that in my, seasoning drawer. What are the things that the average everyday person can cook and make and feel like, they've done a good thing with their family? And it's not about whether or not you can cook, because recipes are good, but that's my problem, because I don't use recipes. They're in my head and I try to figure out what's in a recipe. So fortunately my family will try that. But even if they say lamb chops, then okay, we'll make pork chops. You know what I mean? I just try to make it for the average person, because the one thing, I've had a blog a couple of times, but I keep starting and stopping. And I started the Instagram page late last year, but I was posting on Facebook. So I always get DMs from people saying, okay, what about this? And how do I do this? And this is what I have, or I don't even know where to start. So I knew that there was something there. And then I was invited to speak at this retreat in October, totally unrelated to food. But while I was there, I met a young lady who is, and this is the thing and the term these days, she's a Christian influencer, but she's trying to put together people of color that are Christians and get their, whatever that thing is that God gave them, so that they can share it if they feel like they should be doing that. And I keep getting that tugging like I should. I had said I was going to put all my recipes together and really write a book for my boys and my husband. If something ever happened to me, then they would have this little paperback book and make things and think of me, or when they're away at college, think of me. So that's kind of how it all got started. But it really, was more about, okay, here's a $20 bill. I was teaching coupon classes at the time, so I could go to Kroger and load up with what we needed. And I started with the sale papers, and then it just developed into that weekly menu, because they kept saying, what are we having for dinner? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. And a lot of things that you can make, you really do need to put them in the crock pot or something like that, because your day can determine your dinner. Then you're eating popcorn, or you're not eating at all, or you're eating 10 o'clock at night. And there's nothing wrong, with that every now and then. But we have some medical concerns with one of my sons. And so we have to make sure, that we're loading up on veggies. So I try to have something green every time, even if it's a salad. But so that's how all of that got started. But
let me just say a couple of things, Jailyn. And when you mentioned about writing those recipes down, I know that's what a lot of our ancestors did, right? Wrote, and thankfully they did, just write down, jot down, scribble their recipes for us to pick up on. The other thing I wanted to mention is when you talked about, substituting, something, in a recipe, that was a light bulb for me. I was telling you earlier how I use it as an excuse, honestly, but me being the youngest of 4 girls and everyone else was, in the kitchen, mama gave them assignments to actually cook and season and things like that. I came in at the end to put the rolls in, stir up the cornbread, and mama poured it in the pan and put it in the oven. And so I had it very easy. So thinking about cooking something and, God forbid, adjusting a recipe or substituting something, I was very intimidated by that and scared I was going to fail, it was going to taste horrible. So that says a lot, about how your family trusts you, that you can tweak something or not not have to follow a recipe. And that's one thing that I'm picking up on, you know, being able to just figure out how to put things together. I'm not there yet.
Right.
One of the reasons why I invited you here.
Well, no, and thank you. And that makes sense.
Confidence. It takes that confidence to know that you can substitute something. You don't have to follow a recipe. You got to be careful, but
yes.
Yeah, but you know, as you learn and gain that wisdom, you can kind of just make some things happen.
That's absolutely true, because I took a quick cooking class earlier today. I've been trying to take advantage of being at home and all this free stuff and free content that's out there. And so there, during the class, the chef was talking about the 5 essential things that we need to know and have in our kitchen. And he talked about knives and having your pantry with staples, which are the common things that we all have: flour, sugar, you know, but fresh herbs.
I have to pause right there. I did not know that at a certain period of my life. I had some friends who used to laugh at me and they'd be like, "You don't even have the staples." And I'd be like, "What's the staples?" It took me, I was probably 35 before I knew that if you just have those staple ingredients, how many things you can put together. So I'm being honest tonight. It took me a while to know that.
So that's, as I develop the Facebook page, because that's something I started a Facebook page last year, but I had a fight with Facebook, so I wasn't able to continue adding content like I expected. But we are now friends again, so I was able to start a new page just last week. But I plan on doing a little bit of that, talking about what are the staples, the differences between onions, why you use a shallot as opposed to a red onion, those kind of things that I'm learning on the way, you know, down this journey, because I don't see me stopping cooking anytime soon, because my boys are 23, 14, and 13. And then my husband, you know, when they're all gone, he's still going to want to eat. So I feel like the Lord's allowing this time for me to learn and to be able to share, because it isn't that difficult. Even if you plan weekly, and that includes some takeout, there's nothing wrong with having takeout every now and then. There's nothing wrong with using, like a couple of weeks ago, we had hot dogs and onion rings, but we put them in the air fryer so they could have that takeout taste. You know, made it fun. And I bought these little hot dog baskets at Dollar Tree 2 years ago, and we put them in a foil. You know, I try to make it fun, because this is different. I love it that we're all home. We're not at the point, I think, where we're getting on each other's nerves, but I also want my young men to leave the house and know how to take care of themselves and cook the basic things, so that they're not spending a lot of money eating out. And then of course that's full of sodium, and you just have to watch, you know, how much you do that. I'm learning to health wise. So it will evolve as we, you know, as God allows me to move forward, but it's just been fun to learn and see. And, you know, I came up with the name years ago because there was hardly any people of color at all on Twitter. We were on Twitter before Twitter was a thing. And what's interesting is that because there weren't that many people on Twitter, there was regular conversation with people like Pioneer Woman.
Yeah.
Because she was posting recipes, and I was like, that looks good, but I don't want jalapeno ranch in my macaroni and cheese.
Come on.
You know, just that sort of thing. But she had ideas, and I was like, she is cooking like I do. And look now, what? Pioneer Woman, all in Walmart. I'm not trying to do all of that.
Yes.
I just want to share, because I from the DMs that I get, I know people, it's a need, and I want to be able, if I can do that, to just share. So
yeah, we appreciate it. We did have a question in the chat. Can you list some of those staples?
Well, depends on your health and how you handle that, but flour, sugar, some of the dry seasonings, garlic powder, onion powder, eggs, let's see, look, let me just, that's why, chili powder, lemon pepper, just even if you grab some of the seasonings, I know there are better quality, so don't kill me. But if you just grab some of these, you don't have to rely on a taco seasoning mix. You can make your own, and then the sodium isn't an issue because you're controlling how much sodium is in there. So what I can do is put a list together, because that's actually what I am working on. A basic flour versus a cake flour. I didn't know that there was a difference. I didn't know self-rising flour, what is that? But then what have you noticed lately? People are saying the things that are disappearing from the shelves the longer that we're in shelter in place are the flour and the sugar and the yeast, because there's no yeast. Everybody's trying to make their own bread because there's no bread on the shelf, but then you want to make a roll. Just those kind of things, but also fresh. I shop at Aldi, Costco, Target, and we try to get spinach, keep spinach on hand. I keep chicken breasts on hand, or a whole chicken, which that's actually been hard to find lately, and shrimp and tomatoes, any of that. That's at Aldi's on Wednesday. Costco has that. We try to go to Central Market too every now and then to pick up those things. But I can put a list together and send that to you, Leslie, just to share, because it is a long list, but once you have them, you have them. So my sons and I, for instance, we're going to make noodles because they like noodles, and when they're hungry, they know that there are some things that they can make and eat without having to ask me, and they make buttered noodles all the time. So if they're going to do that, then we're going to use some veggie noodles, you know what I mean? And we look at the content that way. But I can make a list, because it's a long list. Your staple should be, but you just buy them a little bit at a time. Don't feel like you got to go out and go spend $200 to do that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, so to the recipes, and I don't know, Leslie, if you got those pictures. The pictures are on the Instagram page, but I thought of 5 things that you can make fairly quickly that have 5 or less ingredients. And the first one is pasta salad. Excuse me. Obviously, it's better cold. Sometimes we'll eat it hot. But the pasta salad is really, really, really simple. And we try to use garden noodles. I use garden rotini to make that. And cucumbers, usually, tomatoes, zucchini or squash, and Italian dressing. You don't have to use Italian dressing. If you want to use it with a creamier dressing, you certainly can. In order for my boys to eat more vegetables and to eat different kinds of vegetables like red bell peppers and squash, to have them eat it raw, we usually dip that in the Italian dressing or a low-fat ranch or something like that. But cut up those vegetables, boil the pasta, toss it, and you need to let it sit in the refrigerator and chill so that the flavors can kind of gel together, but I like it warm. And then, of course, if you want to add meat, you can add meat. But very simple and very filling. Sometimes we'll add shrimp. The other day we had it with no meat at all, and they just kept coming back for more servings. So I make more. But if we're going to eat pasta, then we're going to try to mix it up with the type of noodles that you have. And that's even 15 minutes or less. So all the things that are in that pasta salad are part of your staples. And those would be like your fresh staples, because we try to keep zucchini and squash, cucumbers, and we've been using a lot of grape and cherry tomatoes. I don't really buy the big ones unless we're barbecuing or something, or making, I don't really buy those that often, maybe once a month, but we keep a lot of cherry and grape tomatoes. But that's also a way that I introduced eating raw squash and zucchini with the boys, and they'll eat it up. So that's the first one. And I can send you the recipes too, Leslie. The second one, chicken pot pie. This is one that I think it was one of the first things I kind of taught myself to make, watched a lot of people make it, but certainly the kind that you can buy in the store is very high in sodium. And so there are a lot of ways to make chicken pot pie, but I just like to keep it simple. So you need to purchase the pre-made crusts in the biscuit and pizza section. And it usually comes with 2 of those crusts, and then chicken. So whenever I make a whole chicken or make chicken breast, whatever is left, we put that to the side. When I first started making this, I would use a canned chicken, but you can tell the difference, and that's awful. I mean, you know, I'm not saying, hey, that's how I started. I'm just saying as I've grown.
Right.
But on occasion, I'll also purchase chicken strips. Aldi has a bag of chicken tenders that are skinless and boneless for about $5, $5.50. So I'll put that package of chicken and boil it on the stove and use that for chicken salad and chicken pot pie. But then all you need is a bag of frozen vegetables and half a can of cream of chicken, half a can of cream of mushroom, and mix all of that together. So lay your crust in your baking dish. I have one that my mom passed down. It's round. It's usually for apple and cherry pies, but we don't really eat that either. But I like, because I'm making it, I'm thinking of my mom. But you put one crust on the bottom, then your mixture that you just put together in the pie crust, put the second crust on top, kind of, you know, pinching together around the end so you can seal it. And then you cut 4 slits in the top so that the steam can escape. And depending on your oven, I used to have to put foil around the edges of the pot pie and cook for about 30 minutes first with the foil, and then I would take it off. But now I'm not having to do that, so I don't know what's happened with my oven. But oh, don't forget to put a little egg wash on top to make it golden. But then you put that in the oven at 350 for an hour. Just check your crust, and I mean, boom, you're done.
That's one that's always been intimidating to me, the thought of making a homemade chicken pot pie, and you already somebody's asking about egg wash.
So egg wash, just crack an egg, really, in a bowl, stir it with a fork, and you can, if you have a brush, they look like paint brushes, but I use them in the kitchen. They're usually really small, and you just paint the top. That's all egg wash is. Some people put a little water in it, but if you just put the egg, and it's mainly the yolk, but you're just spreading that, brushing that across the top of the pot pie. Thank you, Leslie, for that, because yeah. Once it's done, and now I have to make 2 because the boys really like it. One of my boys does not. He does not like the crust at all. But he doesn't like pie or anything like that either. So what I do for him, the nights that I make that mixture, I set a little bit aside for him, and I make some rice for him, and then I put that mixture on top, and he has what's called chicken a la king. And I learned how to make chicken a la king at DISD, Skyline High School.
Shout out to DISD.
So that's chicken pot pie. The other one, real simple, bean burritos. Bean burritos. I don't know why, but I love it. My kids could care less if there's some meat in the burritos. So tortillas, I keep corn and flour on hand. Again, a staple. But when we make the burritos, we use the flour for that. Because I'm trying to, you know, move us a little more forward with our health, I'm trying to only have black beans. So there is a black refried bean. It is in a can, but you can make your own if you buy dry beans. Again, another staple. But if you have black beans, you can cook them and then mash them. But we're eating them whole sometimes. But there is a refried black bean. So you just take your tortilla, you put your black beans on there, and then fill it with onions. Spinach is another place where where I get the spinach in there for them. Tomatoes, Add some cilantro, which is in the same area as the fresh parsley. It's about 50 cents wherever you go. It's a lot of it. It's very fragrant. If you eat or like Mexican food, restaurants use it a lot. It's very strong. I love it. So they happen to as well, but just put a little cilantro in there. And then
so much better than the dried cilantro in the bottle, right?
yes. This is when fresh matters because you can really taste it. And that's something that I've learned along the way. I do have dried herbs in my seasoning drawer, but I try to get fresh wherever possible. But you know, sometimes you just can't. And interestingly enough, since I've become an essential oiler person, some of our oils are used in the kitchen. There's a cilantro oil, and it is so good. And the reason I like using the oils is because they come straight from the fresh herbs. They just distill and get that oil out of there. You only need a drop. But for the most part, because I want my boys to see green things, because we know the green vegetables are even healthier for us. And the darker the vegetable in terms of when it's fresh, not when it's cooked, because when it's cooked and it's dark, you usually cook the nutrients out of it. But when it's fresh and dark, I want them to see green all the time, as much as possible when they can. So you wrap the burrito. Oh, cheese, if you want cheese, wrap it up, put that sucker in the microwave, which that's one other thing we're trying to pull back on, but I haven't figured out how to heat it up except for the oven and heating up the house, and I don't want to do all that either. I haven't been able to successfully warm it up in the air fryer because we're utilizing our air fryer a lot as well. Mine opens up for some reason, but you heat it up and there you have it. The good thing about the bean burritos, or the burritos in and of itself, that's another thing where you can add turkey or chicken or beef, but you can make a lot of them and then wrap them in parchment paper, then put them in a freezer bag and put them in the freezer. When my oldest son was at A&M, that's actually what I did for him a lot.
Gig'em Aggies. Gig'em Aggies, sorry.
Yes. But I would make the burritos, put them there, and then he could heat them up whenever he was ready.
I love it.
Burritos, breakfast burritos, same thing. Egg, cheese, whatever meat, if you want meat in there, wrap them up, put them in the parchment paper. The parchment paper is the white paper that looks like foil in terms of the box, but it's just white, and you can use that in baking so your cookies don't stick or things like that. I don't use it that often, but that's how I know it's best to wrap those up and put them in the freezer. And again, because I have boys, I need to be able to have heat and eat things for them.
And by the way, Jailyn, I just posted those pictures on our Facebook group. I was having trouble sharing the pictures from the app for some reason, but I just posted them on the Facebook group, so you guys can look at them there.
Let's see. The other thing is, beef tips. So I don't know who turned me on to this, but when I can't find a brisket, or not brisket, when I can't find a roast, or roast is way too expensive, I use beef tips. So we use that in a myriad of ways. Our vegetable stew, beef stew that we make. And so I started making these beef tips and gravy, and this is really easy too. So this is in the meat section and the beef section. I think you could do the same thing with, I can't remember what the veggie substitute is. It's tofu, but there's another meat texture type veggie dish. But let's just go with the beef tips. So they're in squares, they're in cubes, and it says beef stew, beef cubes. Get those. The best way to do those is in the crock pot. Put them in the crock pot. If you don't know your seasonings, become friends with Lipton onion soup mix, or the Aldi version of that, or the Walmart version of that. Put the beef cubes in your crock pot and let them cook all day, because they are so super tender. It just is ridiculous. But that onion soup mix also makes a gravy so that when they're done, you can put it over noodles, you can put it over rice. So when we have something as heavy as beef, this is another place where I'll enter in a vegetable that they don't really care for, but will eat because they like the beef and the noodle. And then in the picture, there's fresh green beans. We've tried to start cooking more fresh green beans. But if you cook it on the stove, it's gonna take a while. So that's where I have started using my crock pot more. And hold on a second. Let's see. I was trying to, oh, here they are. So I use my crock pot a lot, and this is helping. These slow cooker bags, everybody makes some now. Wish I had thought of this, 5 years ago, probably would be a millionaire by now, because all it is a bag, but it helps with cleanup, and it helps, because I don't know, after a time, if you use your crock pot a lot, the bowl just does some weird things. So I started using these, and we just pick them up and throw it out. Same thing if you use, if you're cooking in the oven. This is another way to get a really tender cut of beef, a roast or something like that. You put it in the oven bag, and you can put seasoning in there and let it cook in the oven. And there's usually instructions on there. But this is another way to find other recipes, because y'all, really simple. Follow the directions on the back, put that in there, and it's tender. But I like the crock pot because it's cooking all day. While we're gone, we come back in. It's wonderful. I think that's it around the beef tip. Sometimes I'll add gravy or make a gravy because I want it thick. So in that picture, that does have gravy added. And then the last thing is a hot one pan pasta dish. This doesn't have doesn't have meat, but you can add meat. But what I like about it is you get your Dutch oven. You probably have seen the video going around social media, but you get, and I say Dutch oven. So let's see. This is the big Dutch ovens. They come round or oval, and it usually, has a hard top. These are good for stews and soups and
That
things.
is beautiful.
Hmm.
It's beautiful.
That was $20. Thank you. And believe it or not, HEB sells them. I got that one from QVC because it's a cast iron, and it is non-stick on the inside. Ooh, I love it, love it, love it. New Wave oven. Yes, that's true. Yes, I see Audra. Yes, yes. But with the one pot pasta, you use your dried pasta. You put that in first, then you can add some cherry tomatoes. You can add broccoli, onions, seasoning, and then 4 cups of water and a little olive oil. Cover it up. Cook for about 11 to 15 minutes, depending on your oven and the pot that you're using. You just want to make sure that the pasta is cooked, and then stir it up. You're constantly watching it to make sure that the noodles that are at the bottom don't burn, but you put them in first because they're going to absorb the water and the pressure of the other things. But in 15 minutes, it's done. You've stirred it up. Voila, it's done. Pull it out. Olive oil. That's the other staple that I keep here no matter what. And Aldi is very good about having a very expensive grade cold press extra virgin olive oil. And sometimes they'll run it on sale, but sprinkle some olive oil on the top, add some Parmesan cheese. Block cheese is something that I'm learning more about. It's better in terms of your cost if you buy the block cheese instead of the pre-cut, pre-shredded, pre-whatever. Go ahead and just buy the block cheese, and then you shred it as you need to. put that on top, and there you go. That's again another something that you can add shrimp or chicken to. But if what I've noticed, because my boys do like pasta, that's how I can balance what they're having, because we might not have meat. The other night, y'all, I don't even know why we were up at 11:15. But that's what we did. We made that one pan pasta, and it only had vegetables in it, and they won't eat onions if they see them. But
yeah, my kids are the same way.
then there's the pasta, the olive oil. They love that, and it was so good. So you just around some of these things, you adjust the seasoning as you like it, and of all of it. But just know onion powder goes a long way. Garlic powder is a little more strong, so you just want to be careful. So that's what I'm working on as I'm putting recipes together, because I know our tastes are different from other people. But it's easier to start out with just a little and add more than add 2 teaspoons of salt and then it's salty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you're using, you're depending on the cut of meat or the type of meat, whether it's beef, pork, or chicken, the size of the cut of meat also makes a difference. But I really try to get food on the table within 30 minutes. But some of the other things I make, I just didn't bring them here because they do involve a lot of ingredients. But like our lasagna soup, we made that just playing around in the kitchen, but it's so good.
Yes, please post that one.
Okay.
Well,
So,
Jailyn, yeah, thank you so much for everything that you shared. I want to ask you one thing, because we were talking, earlier about friendships and, how, it's not about, just for those of you who joined a little bit later, with a friendship, we kind of played a game with Gwen and Angel. We're talking about the difference between, knowing facts and details about someone versus being connected to the heart. So I'm thinking about that in relation to what you're sharing about cooking and what you said at the beginning of the call about you just kind of feeling comfortable, in the kitchen, loving to, serve your family. And for some of us, it kind of feels like a task sometimes. And I kind of feel like that's an important thing for you to point out for us, who may kind of struggle in that area. Because I realize that if we just kind of looked at, following directions, yes, it could be easy for anybody to put together a recipe, but it is about a little bit more than that, kind of having that heart to serve and to provide. So if you can, as in closing, just share a little bit about that, your heart for cooking for your family and for your loved ones.
A lot of it just comes from, again, I knowing that that's the responsibility I have in my marriage, because my husband does not enjoy cooking. So, but because I did, and I like to test and try different things, it's become a labor of love. But I find such pleasure when they're eating, or when they say, "Oh, Mom, this is the best I've ever had," or because my sisters cook and we spend a lot of time together, but there are differences in what we all do. But I just think that over the years, it's become apparent that the Lord wants me to share in some sort of way, because you're not less than, or, a bad person if you don't have the desire to get in the kitchen and cook. I love watching shows. I love trying recipes out. That doesn't bother me. But I know some of us don't have that kind of disposable income either. And so more than anything, I want families to be able to eat. Food is my thing, whether it's lack of or sharing with your family. But I want it to be a time that you and your family can have together. So whether that's food and preparing things, my boys love being in the kitchen. They love being sous chefs. But I know that's not everybody's story. But it can be a time that you can come together and talk about different things, and sharing. And you will be amazed at the things that your kids will even share with you. But even as a single person, y'all, I was cooking as a single person because I didn't have a lot of disposable income. And so I don't want you to think that you got to go out to eat you know, to get to make the bill, if you will, and I say make the bill. You don't have to go out to eat just to eat to get what you want. Find out the things that you do like and start there. And then it's also being a good steward of the resources that God's giving you, you know, to be able to save or share, and you can donate whatever is extra, however that is. So it's just a passion of mine to be able to share and pass down to my boys so that their children will know what their grandma Jailyn used to do, used to say, and have my writing, my handwriting, because I love seeing my relatives' writings on cards and recipes and things like that. It's just keeping the family moving, and just really just spending that time together and knowing that I've done what God's called me to do in my family, you know, taking care of them. I feel like I'm taking care of them when I feed them.
Yes, you are. Well, you know, as your friend, I feel like all those years following your menus, you know, you're kind of also taking care of us too. Just like, you know, we talked about modeling earlier, is something that I feel like is a gift of yours as well. So thank you for sharing your heart and your ideas. Again, y'all, Jailyn's page on Facebook and Instagram. Can you say that again, Jailyn? Because I don't want to butcher it.
Oh, it's okay. Salt, pepper, brown sugar.
Salt, pepper, brown sugar.